You know that feeling of moving into a new house? It's supposed to be this amazing fresh start, right? A total blank slate. But what if that blank slate isn't really blank at all? What if it's hiding something awful? Something that can turn that dream home into a total nightmare? I mean, really think about it. What's the absolute worst thing you could find? Leaky pipes? Termites? Yeah, those are bad. But what about something human? Something way, way more sinister. Well, for the people in the stories we're about to dive into, the answer was exactly that. A living nightmare. They found out they weren't just unpacking boxes in a new house. They were stepping right into the middle of someone else's horror movie. All right, so let's get into our first story. It kicks off with a family moving into what seems like the perfect suburban dream home. You know the type. Quiet street, friendly neighbors, the kind of place you think is totally safe. They even loves the garden, which was a little wild and had these cool old statues. They loved them. At first, anyway. So, it all started small. Kind of creepy, but easy to dismiss. One of the garden statues just turns around to face away from the house. Weird. The next day, another one does the same. Okay, the family thinks maybe it's just the kids playing a prank, right? No big deal. But then, things escalate. Big time. One evening, they find all the statues, and these things are heavy, lined up at the edge of the property, just staring at the house. A few days later, they find "Go Away" spray painted on the back wall. And then, the grand finale. That night, they look outside and see 5 figures in white masks, just dancing in their backyard. Can you even imagine? So naturally, they're terrified. They feel completely helpless. They do what anyone would do. They call the cops. But I mean, what are the police going to do? There are no leads, no real evidence. They just take a report and suggest, hey, maybe you should get some cameras. But the family is already stretched thin from the move. So you've got this family being actively terrorized on their own property, and the people who are supposed to protect them can't really do anything. And this quote from the homeowner, man, it just says it all. I hope no one ever has to experience the sensation of feeling unsafe in your own home. That really hits you, right? Because this wasn't just some dumb prank. This was a psychological attack. It took the one place in the entire world where you're supposed to feel safe and turned it into a place of constant fear. So after that terrifying night with the masked figures, the family somehow found the money for security cameras. And you know what? The second the cameras went up, it all stopped. Just like that. But here's the really chilling part. They never found out who it was or why. They were just left with this horrible, unanswered question hanging over their heads forever. All right, moving on to story number 2. This one starts with something totally normal. A guy, who's actually an electrician, buys a new house. A circuit breaker trips, so he heads down to the basement to fix it. Just a routine, everyday task, right? Except this little chore ends up uncovering a massive secret that was literally hiding right under his feet. So he's down there in the basement, and tucked away in a corner, he finds this door. But it's not a normal door. It's this huge industrial-grade metal thing, thick like a bank vault. And of course, it's locked. So he tries all the old keys, nothing works. He calls up the previous owners, and their reaction is weird, super evasive. They just say, we lost the key a long time ago. Don't worry about it. Just ignore it. I mean, who says that? That's basically the best way to make someone not ignore it. Okay, so now he has to know what's in there. He calls a locksmith, and even this professional is stumped. The locksmith takes one look at the lock and says it's way too complex to be for a normal panic room. So for almost a full hour, this guy is working on it, building the suspense until finally, click, the heavy door swings open. And what's inside is just bizarre. It's almost like a weird shrine. There are these photos on the wall, but they're covered in strange symbols. There's a single chair, and it's just facing a blank wall. But then he sees the other stuff. A cot with crumpled blankets, empty chip bags, old water bottles. And then it hits him, this absolutely chilling realization. This wasn't for storage. Someone was living in here. And they were here very recently. But wait, it gets even crazier. Because then he finds a second hidden door inside that room. And this door leads to one of those outdoor cellar exits, the kind with the slanted doors you see outside old houses. An exit the new homeowner had never even bothered to check. So this squatter, they had their own private entrance. They could come and go as they pleased, completely undetected. So the homeowner changes the locks on the main door and barricades the cellar exit. He thinks it's over, but that night, they come back, and they are not happy about being locked out. First, there are these loud bangs on the doors. Then, he hears rocks tapping against his bedroom window. And finally, the sound of the kitchen window shattering. They weren't just passing through. They wanted their home back. And that brings us to our final story. This one's a real chilling reminder that, sometimes the danger isn't hiding inside your walls or lurking in your garden. Sometimes it's right out in the open, watching from the house next door. So this story is about a young guy, first-time homeowner. He's excited, but he starts noticing his elderly neighbor, Priscilla, is off. She'll just stand in her yard for hours staring at his house. He'll see her moving from window to window, just watching him. He mentions it to his dad, and his dad just kind of blows it off. She's probably just lonely, maybe has a little dementia, she's harmless. But Priscilla's actions get weirder. She starts trespassing, leaving a single sock on his property. And suddenly, this isn't just confused old lady territory anymore. It's becoming obsessive. Then one night, it all comes to a head. His doorbell just starts ringing and ringing and ringing, over and over. At this point, he's more annoyed than scared. He decides he's had enough and he's going to confront her. So he swings open the door, and it was almost the last thing he ever did. She immediately lunges at him, her face just twisted with rage, and that's when he sees it. She's holding a massive kitchen knife. So he's literally fighting for his life on his own doorstep, and she starts screaming. But what she's screaming doesn't make any sense. She's yelling something about how he had taken her son away from her. Suddenly, it's clear. This wasn't just a random act of violence. In her broken mind, she had a reason. A terrible, tragic, and incredibly dangerous reason. Amazingly, he managed to overpower her and get the knife away, holding her down until the cops got there. She was taken to a psychiatric facility, and he never saw her again. So the immediate danger was over. But that feeling of safety, that simple idea that you can trust the people living right next to you, yeah, that was gone for good. Okay, so let's step back for a second. We have 3 completely different, terrifying stories. So what's the common thread here? What do they all have in common? Well, they all plug directly into one of our deepest, most primal fears. This isn't just about spooky stuff in the dark. It's way more personal than that. When you really break it down, each story attacks the different kind of fear. The garden statues, that's the horror of the unknown, of something menacing that you can't see or explain. The locked basement with the squatter, that's about the total violation of your personal sanctuary. And the neighbor, that's the fear of betrayal. When someone who's supposed to be safe, someone just a few feet away, turns out to be a monster. Every single one of these is an attack on that fundamental idea that your home is your safe space. I think what these stories really show us is that the scariest monsters aren't the ones in fairy tales. They're real people. And they know where you live. Which kind of leaves you with one last, really unsettling thought to chew on. How well do you really know your home? And maybe more importantly, how well do you know your neighbors?